Chærete, friends. Welcome to Classics in Calorie, a weekly dive into some of the ancient world's wackiest facts. I'm Mark Graves, and I am joined today by my parents' dog, Cooper, is gracing us with his presence. So say hello to him, and let's get started. Different time periods, cultures, and of course individuals have different beauty standards, different things that they find particularly attractive or that they are just particularly particular about. And it can be weird, but also kind of interesting to enter or visit a culture and find that they are just fixated on some body part or some fashion that you have never noticed, you've never found particularly attractive or erotic, but they seem to. So I've made lots of videos at this point about beauty standards in the ancient world. We've looked at Rome, Greece, men, women, and I thought that I'd pretty much covered all of the substantial and interesting differences that there were to talk about when it came to beauty standards in the ancient world. But it turns out, I learned recently that I was wrong. There's at least one more thing that we absolutely have to talk about. And I want to introduce this new topic by looking at a quote from Galen. Galen is a medical writer from ancient Greece, and the particular passage is talking about how he finds the human body just fantastic, amazing, just so beautiful. And in particular, he's listing some features that he doesn't find necessarily necessary. They're not super useful per se, but he still finds them aesthetically outstanding. Nature, out of her abundance, ornaments all the members, especially in man. In many parts, there is manifest ornamentation, though at times this is obscured by the brilliance of their usefulness. The ears show obvious ornamentation, and so I suppose is the skin called the prepuce at the end of the penis, and the flesh of the buttocks. So today we're going to be talking about the prepuce, which is the bit of skin that comes at the end of an uncircumcised penis that basically covers the end and the glands. I'm very grateful today to have a scholarly source. I found an article entitled "The Ideal Prepuce in Ancient Greece and Rome, Male Genital Aesthetics and Their Relation to Lipodermis, Circumcision, Foreskin Restoration, and the Kynodesme," which I don't think I'm pronouncing correctly, so have fun correcting me in the comments. But the author for that is Frederick M. Hodges, so thank you so much, Frederick. So not only were Greeks and Romans uncircumcised, but they were proud of that fact. And part of the male beauty standards was not just having a prepuce, but also apparently having a particular size and shape. So Frederick says that if you look at art from Rome and Greece, if we look at statues and vase paintings that are supposed to portray this ideal male form, there are some patterns that present themselves when it comes to the portrayal of the male member. So I guess length is particularly important. On average, the length is almost 3/4 the length of the entire penis, which I'm not super familiar with this topic, but that seems very long. That seems quite long. And there's also supposed to be a particular shape. So it's supposed to taper and get kind of pointy at the end, and that they find just particularly aesthetically pleasing, I guess. To get a little bit more in detail in that, let's actually look at a quote from Frederick's article. "It is also a convention of vase painting that, even when in a state of erection, the prepuce of paragons of male beauty should retain its proportionality to the rest of the penis. Despite erection, therefore, it is almost invariably represented as unretracted, long, and finely tapered." First off, I just have to reiterate how grateful I am for authors who write articles like this and tackle these kinds of topics head on. Not only does it obviously make my job so much easier, but also it's just so much fun to read sentences like that in a scholarly article. He goes on to talk about several other things as well, so we get some information about terminology. Ancient Greek had multiple words for the different parts of the prepuce. First off, we have the acropostheon, which apparently, I didn't know any of this, but designates the tapered, tubular, visually defining portion of the prepuce that extends beyond the glands and terminates at the preputal orifice. Quite a mouthful. I'm glad I made it through on that take. And there's also the posthe/posthon, which designates the part that covers the glands. Unfortunately, I have to tell you that posthon doubles as a nickname for a young boy. And ancient Greece is a very pederastic culture. They definitely have a thing for young boys. So I just suspect that there's some unfortunate implications attached to that nickname. Speaking of twisted, I always imagine, I do this frequently, men in ancient Greece running around completely nude, just really enjoying letting everything hang out, free balling it very literally. But apparently that wasn't always the case, actually, especially if you were doing something athletic like wrestling or running. What they had was not clothes, but a little leather strap that they would use to kind of tie up the prepuce over the end of the penis. So they would tie it there and fasten it. I guess they found it kind of crass and immodest, of all things, to let the very end of the penis show. So you actually want to cover it up and keep the prepuce tied there so that it can't peel back and reveal you to the world. So they want to tie that up. They put a little bow, a little pretty nice bow at the end. And then sometimes they actually even go a step further than that. And they kind of tie the penis up to the waist, I guess, to sort of keep it fastened and contained out of the way if you're doing something athletic. And this strap, this bit of leather, the Greek term for it is the kynodesme, which I'll give you a second to guess what that means. Dog leash. A potential side effect of that regular, pulling and stretching and tying of the prepuce is that over time you might actually stretch it out a bit, which they would have seen as a total win situation, since, as we said, they were so interested in having a long prepuce. That was the attractive thing for them. And we have multiple passages from medical authors talking about ways to try to stretch out the prepuce, and sometimes even surgical interventions to try to repair or reconstruct prepuces that have been damaged or removed. As you can imagine, the Greeks and Romans had a hard time interacting with cultures that practice things like circumcision. So they viciously mocked them as being barbaric, superstitious, oppressive. They really just did not like it. And at different times, the Roman Senate or different Roman emperors would come along and they would try to ban and get rid of circumcision entirely. Although eventually Antoninus Pius comes around and he does make an exception for Jewish people that they are allowed to circumcise themselves. But clearly there's a lot of tension that the Romans feel around this issue. Thanks so much for checking out this video, you guys. I hope that you, like me, learned something new. Special thank you, as always, to subscribers and to Patreon members, and I hope to see you all again next week. Hαίrete.